If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.
Hi, this is Melanie Johnson. Great to see you again. I have Sara McDermott here with me, Sara McDermott Jain, and we are going to be talking about how to turn your book into a script. And maybe we're going to touch on how to turn a script into a book. Both are really important things. And if that's been on your mind, you're in the right place. Sara, tell us a little bit how you got started in doing screenplays.
Absolutely. And thank you so much to Melanie for having me here. I'm so excited about what you're doing with your summit. So me, with my background, I first got involved with screenwriting actually when I was in graduate school. I actually went to graduate school for publishing. But while I was there, I took a screenwriting course and I actually wound up selling the screenplay that I wrote while in the course to a small independent production company. So very much from that point forward, I got bitten with the bug. And for a lot of years now, I've just been a working screenwriter. So I've sold original work. I sometimes get hired by production companies to clean up or fix a script that's getting ready to go into production, but it's still a little bit of a mess. So they bring me in before the cameras roll to get it production ready. And then sometimes I get hired by producers who might have a great idea for a film, but being producers and not writers, they don't really have the skill set to do the script writing. So they'll bring me in, tell me all about their vision, and then have me write the script. So I've worked in all these different capacities with screenwriting. Since I also have this mix of publishing in my background, I also feel very passionately about helping authors to adapt their books to screenplays. I'm also a published author, so I have a book actually coming out right about now, February 2022. So this is something that I feel very strongly about, that every author should have these skills and be able to reach a much wider audience by doing an adaptation.
The marketplace has changed so much, where we didn't have Netflix before. We didn't have Amazon Prime before. And I think it's opened up a whole nother door for a lot of authors that are nonfiction authors, where you're getting these docudramas, these how-to type of things. Let's start with the nonfiction genre. What are the top 3 things someone should do when they're thinking about turning their book into a screenplay? I guess whether it's nonfiction or fiction for that matter.
Yes, specifically because you mentioned that a lot of your authors are nonfiction, but of course this applies either way. But with nonfiction, it's very important to keep an eye towards what is that narrative through line still going to be, so that people can still feel engaged with it. So it might not be the same if it is more documentary leaning that way. It might not be the same as having a narrative story with characters, but you still want a story, even if it's pieced together with interviews or whatever, however they're going to approach it, that's going to really engage people as a story, because that's what's going to keep them watching. And similarly, of course, for the fiction writers, you want to think in terms of your story. So for both, it's very important to go through your work and I'd say initially identify those key beats that have to be included. So fiction, this might already be something that's dramatized, like a key part of the plot. Nonfiction, again, it might be something that's more information-based, but however you choose to present it, you need to really identify what are the most important things to keep in there, because it's literally impossible to fit everything from a book, which is probably 200 plus pages, into a screenplay, which a rule for screenplays, it absolutely should not be more than 120 pages long. That's like a die-hard rule. And actually nowadays, the trend is even less than that. So they used to always say not more than 120. Nowadays, I'm starting to hear even more like 100. So like even skewing lower on that. And when it comes to writing a screenplay, a lot of that is going to be a lot of white space on the page, because the way they're formatted, you have your dialogue lines with these 2.5-inch margins on either side, if you're doing it correctly. So the word count for 100 pages of a screenplay is way less than word count for 100 pages of a book. So all that to say, again, it's physically impossible to fit every single thing from the book into the screenplay, which makes it that much more important to hone in on what are those most important things that you have to share. So to help with that, the third thing I'll say is to really identify what the essence of the story is. because identifying the essence is going to help you hone in on what you should keep in there, as opposed to just being married to a bunch of details. So a lot of times writers, we get, and I get it because this happens to me too, but we get very attached to our details, to wanting every single thing to fit into that screenplay. And it doesn't necessarily make a difference for your audience. So if you think about movies you've seen, books you've read that you've loved, chances are you can't recite them word for word. You don't remember every single thing. You are going to remember how they made you feel. You are going to remember the overall message if it resonated with you. So that comes down to just the essence of the story. So you want to really just zero in on what is your essence and serve that. And don't be so hung up on needing to fit in all the other stuff.
Those are great tips. We have the same problem when we're creating books for people, that they have so much of their story and they want to tell everything, and they can't decide if it should be more about their life or more about their business or more about this or that. So it's honing that down. And I understand, like, when you go to a movie, it's always never the same as the book. You're like, oh, they left this out. Oh, they left that out. So how does someone, and the author isn't always the expert of what should stay in and what should stay out. Are there experts out there like you? Do you go in and read the book and say, all right, this is a no, this is a yes, we can gloss over this? And I imagine it's got to be emotionally painful for the author to watch somebody do that.
It is, because again, they're so connected to their work. And I think what really makes the difference is just when you can explain what's going to best serve the story. And I do work with authors. Sometimes I just read the rough draft of the screenplay and we go from there, and I can say what's working, what's not in terms of screenplay structure. Other times, if you want me to read the whole book, I can do that too, and help to give advice on what most needs to stay in. And I try to give examples from films that they're going to know that have been adapted, and just show, like, this is what they did it, and here's why they made this choice. Here's the strategy behind why that person had to get left out, or why this one subplot had to be cut. And sometimes if they can see that happening in movies that have been very successful, that can help them feel a little bit better about it.
Yeah. So how do you feel about, I think it's a different process from writing a book versus writing a screenplay. And you've touched on this a little bit, but should an author try and write their own screenplay? And is that a doable thing?
To a certain extent, I think it depends on the author, but it absolutely is doable. I think if they know their personality type, if they know, okay, like, I'm going to have a very hard time making decisions, cutting something out, it might be in their best interest to instead hire a professional screenwriter and have them do it. But generally, not more than 90% of the time, I think most authors are capable of doing it themselves. And if they can do it themselves, they can bring that fire to the story that they had when they were writing their book.
So we get authors all the time that they want their book turned into a movie, and then the movie producers say you have to have a screenplay to give it to us. And then on the other hand, like, we've had people that they're like, oh, I want to have a movie, and they have the screenplay, and they said you really should turn your screenplay into a book first. So it's like you need both, it sounds like to me. What do you think about that?
I think more and more nowadays, you do need both, just because the ways people consume content has changed. Of course, there's still people reading, but there's such a huge audience now online looking for content, on the streamers looking for content, and one really does feed the other. So there's a lot of producers, if you go to them with a screenplay, if they hear it's based off of a book, you're already in a better position to get a deal because it's existing IP. They're going to figure there's some kind of built-in audience already, assuming the book has been published, which really helps with that. And then the other way around. So if you have a screenplay that you're shopping around, and if producers hear, hey, I'm planning to do a book too, and maybe they're planning to do a campaign with a company like yours to help it reach bestseller status or something like that, then that's really appealing to them. Again, it all comes full circle. So one continually feeds the other in terms of building an audience, which as a writer should be very appealing, because you want your book to generate people who are going to watch the movie. You want the movie to generate more sales of your book, ideally, and keep that going.
Do you think it's true? The producer I talked to recently, he was saying, unless the book is selling a lot, like in the thousands of books, we're not really interested. Walk us through, we get a screenplay. How do we sell it then? What do we do next? We got a book. We took the book to you. Sarah made it into an amazing screenplay, but then how do I get anybody interested in it?
Yes. So what I like to always point out is that most people, especially when they're like totally new to the film industry side of things, they only really have those huge studios in mind, or like those bigger size studios in mind, which makes sense because those are the ones that you hear about all the time. But those are also the ones that probably aren't going to be looking at like query letters and unsolicited content. And those are the ones that probably are going to say, if we're going to adapt a book, it needs to be like a huge property with a really big built-in audience. What I like to just point out to people is that there's a couple huge studios like that, but then there's literally thousands of smaller independent production companies. And those smaller independent production companies, this is actually like a great time for them, because with the streamers, with video on demand and all these other things that have opened up, they're reaching bigger audiences than ever before. And these are the companies, they don't have the same kind of gatekeepers that those very few large studios do. So they will look at query letters and at unsolicited material as long as the idea is appealing. So they will look, of course, they're going to be curious, like how many copies of the book sold, but they're also going to be curious exactly what's the niche. Like if there's a niche audience that they can tap into, that's going to be great. And especially for an independent production company that only has maybe so many marketing dollars, they're actually going to want like a very specific audience, because they don't have the budget to do what Warner Brothers does or that kind of thing. So I would say stuff that can tap into a more specific group of people that maybe hasn't yet been served is going to be fantastic. Or if you do have a book that is more general, but again, it's still a great idea or a great story, that they would probably be very excited to have an opportunity to work on that.
So really find what your niche is, and find producers and production houses that are smaller that you may have a better chance at. Should you have to pay somebody to shop your book out? Someone's like, hey, I'll take it to different agents and different people, because there's a lot of people I think that are out there to take advantage of you.
Yeah, I don't pay anybody for that service. Of course, there's different services that will say, if you give me this, we'll help you out in this way. And you can always evaluate what they're offering, but you shouldn't have to pay anybody just to simply shop your project around. When I hear that, I think mostly like managers and agents. There's a big difference between managers and agents as well, which people don't always realize. So we can talk about that too. But if you're just starting out, chances are, if you get a manager, which you should get before you think about getting an agent, that manager is going to be shopping it around in the hopes that you get a deal. They're going to get paid a percentage of that deal. They're not going to be getting paid from you up front. So be very wary of anyone who comes in and says, just give me $5,000 and I'll get your film made, because it really doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I had the give me $5,000 and I'll see if I can get somebody interested in the book. And I was like, really, that just doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't seem like something's just not right about that whole thing. So I'm glad you brought that up. Why do you think, looking at the future, like back in the old days, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, where you didn't have YouTube necessarily, you didn't have as many outlets. Is there a way, would you recommend saying, listen, you've got this screenplay, why don't you shoot one scene of it or shoot part of it and throw it up on YouTube, or raise money that way? Speak to that.
Absolutely. There's a couple different options that I sometimes talk about with my students. And the one that you're getting at is this idea of the proof of concept. So you don't have enough money to shoot the whole film, but maybe you're going to shoot just one particular scene that's a very juicy scene, or you're going to make it almost like a short film instead to really show it off. So this can have wonderful success. Sometimes it's easier to approach a producer and say, hey, just watch this 5-minute video, as opposed to, hey, read my 100-page script. Obviously, it's going to take them a lot less time, and it's an easier activity for them. So an example of a film that got made, that did this and got made and now has gone on to be a massive franchise, is the Saw franchise. So I get that not everyone out there is like a horror lover, but when the people who wrote Saw were trying to shop Saw around and they weren't getting any traction, decided we're going to take this one scene that is, for people who've seen the movie, it is an iconic scene that you will remember, but they decided we're just going to shoot this one scene, and they just shot it themselves. They got it out. I think they did like the film festival route, showing it almost as like a short film, but it did get in front of the right people. And when the right people saw it, like a light bulb went off. Yeah, we can market this, because now we can see it visually. We can see that they already did the scene and it's working really well. And prior to doing that, like I said, they weren't really getting anywhere. And now who knows how many millions or billions, I don't even know, that franchise has made. Yeah.
So don't give up. Start with grassroots. You can find a lot of creative ways to do it, is what you're telling us, which I love.
Yes. Yeah. Feel free to think outside the box. It is an industry where there's very few like hard and fast rules. So there's a lot of rules in terms of how you format your screenplay. There's lots of rules in terms of how you build your screenplay, but then in terms of actually getting the deals done, getting the movies made, it's very much open to people's creativity. People do it in all different kinds of ways. So yeah, you're not limited in terms of how you move forward.
Cool. And one of the things that we deal with, switching subjects here, is the word fear. Since we were talking about Saw, which is a scary movie, but we're going to talk about fear in a different way. We have authors that come to us and they're very, very successful with what they do and in their career, but then they get so afraid of putting their content out there. And I don't know what it is. It's, will people like it? Is it going to suck? Is it going to be good? Will people buy it? And I imagine you have that same thing. What do you do to get your clients through fear?
Oh my goodness. It's funny because we were just talking about horror movies. So I actually do a seminar on how to move past your fear using the horror movie formula. And the seminar doesn't get into gore and guts and all that, but it does break down how most horror films are built and just how you can apply that knowledge to moving past a fear. So in Act 1, it's a lot about noticing the clues. So what is setting you off in terms of your fear? What makes you nervous? So just being able to identify and hone in on what exactly about it scares you. So you might have a general feeling of, I'm scared to put my work out there, but then hone in even more. What is it exactly? Are you afraid of the rejections? Are you afraid of the other people in your life not understanding what you're doing or laughing at you like you're trying to go make a movie and it seems like pie in the sky? Or what is it exactly? Then in that second act, you have to face the monster. So now you know what it is, what exactly you're afraid of. You have to really plan for yourself. How are you going to face this monster? Because in Act 3, you do have to take action. So it's very much about finding what exactly is the fear, breaking it down so you can understand it, and then starting with actions that, for you feel manageable, that can move you past it, because you are going to want to create like this new normal for yourself where, yes, you can send stuff out. And if it does get rejected, that's not the end of the world. It is very much a numbers game. So sometimes if I have a new script and I'm doing a marketing campaign, I kid you not, I might send it to 1,000 people. That's not an exaggeration, but it's very much a numbers game. If you send it to 1,000 people, you might get 70 back that are interested. Of the 70, you might get 10 to 20 making you some kind of offer. So you're playing, it sounds like a lot, but you're playing that numbers game. And I can remember when I first started in my career, it feeling very intense, it feeling like you lived or died on just one person's yes or no, because you were sending one at a time. And at this stage, I'm very much, it's just the nature of it. Okay, I'm going to send out like 20 different things today or this week, and then we'll see how it goes, or if I have a conversation with someone or what, but it becomes natural. So you got to take action to move through that fear and establish that for yourself so that you can get to that next level.
So important. I think we all have that at some level. We're just afraid to let ourselves hang out there and be authentic. When you get we're a self-publishing company, a boutique publishing company. We're a global brand, Elite Online Publishing, but we give our authors 100% of their copyrights and royalties. But there's a lot of even hybrid publishers that don't do that. They do some kind of like hybrid. They take a portion of that and stuff. So what does that look like when you want to take your book and turn it into a movie? We tell our authors, hey, if someone wants to make a movie that's 100%, you get 100% of the income, the rights, everything. We don't have anything to do with that. But if you go with a hybrid publisher or even a traditional publisher, that's not necessarily the case.
It all comes down to who the rights holder is. So I know that I do have one student and she's still in a legal battle. So when she came into my course, she's publishing a series. So she had already published several books in the series with this one publisher, but I believe they had the rights to the film adaptation. So as she's been trying to do it, she's fighting them every step of the way. And it sounds almost counterintuitive, because why wouldn't they want her to do it? But technically with them having the rights, she has to be very careful. So like I've put her in touch with an entertainment attorney, and like I know she's been taking different steps to get that power back. But I definitely advise all authors to really be aware of that when you are signing your contracts. So who exactly does have the rights to do any kind of adaptation? So ideally you do, so that you have the total power to move forward however you want. But if it is your publisher, then that might be a conversation that you have to have, and figuring out what exactly is within your right to do in terms of moving it forward and what's not, because of course you don't want any repercussions down the line.
Where do you see the future of screenplays going, and any technology that you see in use, maybe to make it easier to create a screenplay?
Oh my goodness. I definitely think overall, with all the opportunities that are now available online, we're going to see more and more of people just writing and producing their own content and getting that up there. And so I really think we're going to see that, and that's really going to open things up for writers. I know in terms of other technology and softwares, people have been working on softwares to help write a screenplay for you. I don't know that the technology is quite there yet. I'm actually sometimes I do a special class. I'm actually doing it with my group tomorrow, but on robots writing screenplays, because this is something that they've tried to do. And your screenwriting careers are safe for now because it doesn't quite work yet. Like the screenplays don't quite turn out. But I know there is a lot going on in terms of software that can at least help you build it. And what I will say in terms of software that I would recommend is to have some kind of script formatting software, just because the rules for formatting a screenplay are so diehard. And I think part of the reason is because it is such a competitive industry that if you get your formatting wrong, a producer won't take the time to read the whole script. It's like an initiation kind of thing. If you don't get that right, I'm not going to spend 100 pages. So the formatting is very specific. So I definitely recommend that people get a software. I use Final Draft. That's the one most people in the industry use, but there are others as well. But I recommend having that so that it can solve the formatting piece for you. Yeah.
That's a big step. And I was listening to Gary Vee the other day, and he was talking about how you could be your own record label with your music, to almost like a Kickstarter thing, but through NFTs. So I wonder if you think that would be an option to list your screenplay. Each page could be a separate NFT that somebody buys that raises the money to create your own production company. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that things are so wide open right now in terms of how you can do it. So I think it's like you need to learn the rules for creating a good story, but then beyond that, in terms of getting the story out there, it's really feel free to think outside the box. People are going to be doing stuff that's new stuff all the time. Crowdfunding has become a big thing, or sites like Patreon where people can support you as an artist. So all that's worth looking into and just seeing kind of fits your personality. So exactly how often do you have to be getting the content out there? Exactly what incentives can you offer people if they are going to put some money towards your project? But I think it's a great option and a great thing that has made it possible for a lot more people to get things done.
All right, Sarah. So what are your chances? You write a book, you turn it into a screenplay. The book sold a few hundred copies, maybe 1,000 copies in the last year. What are your chances of getting a movie deal?
Oh my goodness. It's hard to put an exact number on it. Again, I think it comes down so much to just finding the right production company. And again, there's thousands of them out there, and their contact information is available online. Sites like IMDb Pro or even LinkedIn, you can find them. It's not as mysterious as like it used to be however many years ago. A lot of times I hear writers ask about chasing trends, or I should write a particular kind of story. And I actually discourage that, because I think that whatever your story is, out of all those production companies that exist, someone out there is the right person that can hear that idea and it resonates with them. So the chance of success, it really depends on finding that right person, but you can set yourself up for success by having that strategy. Again, if you do a marketing blast to that screenplay, if you play the numbers game, if you're really putting it out there, and also, of course, if you're researching to see who's doing these types of stories, and you're watching a lot of those same kind of films so that you can identify the people who work on it. So I should mention that too, that even on the larger studio films, you might sometimes see that they have 20 producers. So not every one of those producers is up at this top level. Some of them might just have their personal email online because that might have been a big film that they were involved with, but they might not be yet consistently doing that. So they might still be very approachable, but have contacts to some of those bigger people. Watch a lot of content that's similar to what you want to put out there, and figure out a way, learn how to find that contact info. Again, IMDb Pro is like such a great resource. You can find anybody and you might not get Brad Pitt's home phone number, but you will get the contact for his agent, for example. And then as you move down from A-list, move down the tier, a lot of people do just have their direct emails, their direct phone numbers. You can be in touch with them. So learn how to do that so that you can reach out to these people directly and really target those people who want those same kind of stories that you're doing. Because if you do that, it's just going to be a natural fit. It'll be a home run.
Terrific. Okay, one last question. The future of publishing. Where do you think publishing is going with books?
Oh my goodness. As a book lover, I'm hoping it's going to stay strong. I do think that it is going to be increasingly linked with these other forms of media. So I think more and more we're going to see authors who are not just authors, but you're really going to be, to a certain extent, like the heads of your own media empires. Because I think it's going to be, as opposed to just a book, it's going to be a book with maybe a show with maybe a Q&A format, depending, or a book with a movie, or a book with a TV series, books with courses, whatever it is. But I think it's going to spread out. And instead of just having it be the norm that you have that one commodity of the book, I think all those authors out there, you're going to wind up having your own little empire of different things that you can offer related to the book.
I love that. Everyone's going to have their own little media empire.
Yes.
I'm seeing it happen all around me. Thanks for coming. Do you have a bonus to offer to leave in the VIP area?
I do, for sure. So I actually run, it's called the Apex Screenwriting Membership. So it is a group that meets twice a month. So we do Q&A calls with me. You can ask me anything about the industry, helping you with your script, making deals. I also have guest speakers from the industry come on when we have producers. They actually take a look at your work. So there's always a chance to make a deal coming through this group. So I've already had a student make a deal coming through this group. It's only been up and running a couple months, but I would love to extend that as a bonus. It's been fantastic so far. So to reach out to everyone on the summit, that for a couple months, you can get free access to those Apex screenwriting calls.
That's fabulous. Thank you. So get over to that VIP area. I think every author should sign up for that. All right. Thanks so much, Sara. We'll see you next time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Bye-bye.
If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.